The Seahawks have had the healthiest offensive line in the NFL through the first 10 weeks, but that's about to change. The first significant injury in the trenches up front. How will Jalen Sundell's absence impact Seattle's offense? Going to be breaking that all down here on our Monday edition of Locked On Seahawks.
You are Locked On Seahawks, your daily Seattle Seahawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, 12. This is Corbin Smith, host of the Locked On Seahawks podcast, your daily Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. A special thanks to all the 12s who are tuning in, and thank you as always for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week, whether you're tuning in from Sacramento, California, or Lexington, Kentucky. Special thanks to all of you that are tuning in and supporting the podcast. Some big injury news to break down for the Seahawks, who have had the healthiest offensive line in the NFL. That is no longer the case, at least for the next few weeks. Going to be diving into the latest on Jalen Sundell and what it means for Seattle's unit up front protecting Sam Darnold. We've got a lengthy Monday mailbag and my weekly Monday musing thoughts, including Nick Emmanwori showing why the Seahawks traded up to get him at the beginning of the second round and his overall impact on Mike Macdonald's defense. All this being brought your way courtesy of our friends over at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Now for your lead story here on our Monday edition of Locked On Seahawks. Prior to yesterday's game against the Arizona Cardinals, the Seahawks had started the same 5 offensive linemen for every single one of their previous 8 games, and they did it again on Sunday against Arizona. 9 consecutive games, the continuity that's really often eluded Seattle's offensive line. It has been there with these same 5 on the field. Unfortunately, that snap is going to be broken, moving into a critical Week 11 matchup with the Los Angeles Rams. Jalen Sundell, who exited midway through the second quarter in a 44-22 win over the Cardinals, was replaced by Olu Oluwatimi. According to Mike Macdonald, he is going to be out several weeks. Who knows whether or not he's going to end up on injured reserve. Mike Macdonald hinted that that was in consideration today, but no move has been made yet. We should know in the next few days where that's trending. If he does end up on injured reserve, he's going to have to miss a minimum of 4 games, which means Olu Oluwatimi is going to be starting through at least week 14. Now, again, that's if Sundell ends up on injured reserve. It remains to be seen if the Seahawks are going to do that or not. Have to see where he's at physically the next couple of days. Maybe it ends up looking better than initially forecast. Who knows? But it does sound like he is going to miss at least a couple of weeks with this knee injury. We don't know the specifics on it, whether it's a sprain or anything like that, but expected to miss some time. And on the surface, this is obviously a significant move anytime that you're talking about losing an offensive lineman that has started 9 consecutive games. And Jalen Sundell's pass protection numbers are as good as you're going to find for a center in the National Football League. These 6 pressures that he has allowed this year, according to Pro Football Focus. I know pressures have subjectivity to them, but still, that's the 3rd fewest pressures allowed by a center that has had at least 229 pass blocking reps this year. He's got a 98.7% pass block efficiency rate, which ranks 7th out of 32 qualified centers. So we're talking about a player who has been really a rock keeping Sam Darnold upright this season. And Darnold's only been sacked, I believe, 11 times the entire year. And Jalen Sundell's been a big reason for that. His athleticism, his ability to keep guys in front of him. Run game has been much more inconsistent. He's had a couple of holding penalties this year. His targeting has been inconsistent, and yet you can see the athleticism in the zone game. That's why he ended up winning that starting job out of training camp and the preseason. So he's been a pretty rock-solid center. Has he been perfect? No, but he's been an upgrade over what Seattle has had in the past. And as Mike Macdonald said today, he's a player that's improved in the last several games. He's continued to step up his play as he's gotten more experience, and the continuity that he's got with Gray Zabel, the left guard, dating back to their time playing together at North Dakota State. That's not something that you can replace necessarily. With that being said, Olu Oluwatimi going back and watching the all 22 from yesterday's game. Normally, I would reserve this for Monday Musings, but because of the news here, Olu Oluwatimi was, to me, and I loved the word catalyst that Mike Macdonald used because that's what he was. He was knocking guys off the line of scrimmage. He was winning with his targeting battles. He was a big reason that Seattle rushed for over 125 yards in the second half yesterday against Arizona. He was that catalyst. He was the lever, the needle mover, any term you want to use. He was a big part of that, the linchpin in the middle for this offensive line, because he was winning athletically to get where he needed to be. Targeting wise, he was getting his hands on guys and he was driving them out of the play. A couple of the big runs that they had went right off of his butt. This guy looked really good in the run game yesterday. Now, I can't sit here and tell you whether or not the pass pro was really great because we got to see only a couple of snaps where he was pass blocking. The second half was a run fest with Seattle winning big, and they were trying to melt the clock. And they successfully did that because of Olu Oluwatimi being a big part of that 13-play, 79-yard drive that lasted more than 7 minutes. Oluwatimi laid several nice blocks on that series. And so Mike Macdonald offering a ton of praise for him, another player that was staying ready and came in and got the job done at a high level. And again, he called him a catalyst for that run game. So I think Seattle, we saw last year, Oluwatimi started the last 8 games after Connor Williams abruptly retired. He gave up 8 pressures and no sacks during that time. So his pass protection numbers were pretty good in those 8 starts. Seattle ran the football better in the second half than they did in the first half of the season. Abe Lucas coming back certainly helped, but I think Oluwatimi also was part of that. So a little different player, not the exact same skill set, has some strengths that Sundell maybe doesn't, vice versa, but he's going to have to be counted on the next couple of weeks minimum. And if Sundell goes in injured reserve for the next 4 weeks, so that's something to keep an eye on. Seattle will have a different starting offensive line for the first time this season against the Rams on Sunday in SoFi Stadium. As for other injury updates, Jarran Reed undergoing surgery, a second surgery on his injured wrist, the one that Mike Macdonald and John Schneider have said didn't take after the first surgery he had over his bye week. Had his second surgery today. Remains to be seen how long he's going to be out. He has to miss at least the next 3 games. He missed Sunday's game, the first of a mandatory 4 on injured reserve. We'll see when he comes back, but Mike Macdonald seems optimistic still that Seattle's going to have him back at some point this season. Earliest he could return is after week 14 or after week 13. Week 14 is when he could come back against, I believe that's the road game against the Atlanta Falcons, and then they've got the Indianapolis Colts the week after that. So some big games in the later part of the schedule that they could potentially have him back this season. And nothing new on Ernest Jones, Torrey Horton, or Josh Jobe. That is something we should have a little more clarity on Wednesday or Thursday. Mike Macdonald will talk with the media on Wednesday. That's his next scheduled press conference. Maybe have a little bit more of a window on whether any of those 3 players have a chance to come back. Jones, a big piece of this defense. He missed the game on Sunday with a knee injury. Torrey Horton, shin injury that popped up midway through the practice week coming out of that Washington win. He did not play in this game. Rashid Shaheed handled punt return duties, and Seattle relied on some different receivers to handle the snaps. Cooper Kupp coming back certainly helped with that as well. And Josh Jobe, he was out with a concussion. Nehemiah Pritchett stepped in and played quite a few snaps, had a couple really nice pass breakups. But we'll see if any of those 3 players have a chance to make it back this week. Wednesday's practice reportedly telling, but it is a day-to-day proposition with those guys, whether or not they are going to be back in the lineup. Generally speaking, with the Seahawks right now being in that number 1 seed spot, that can change tonight with the Eagles and Packers playing on Monday Night Football. But generally speaking, the health news, we'll see what those 3 players entail that I just mentioned. But this is a team that has been able to weather the injuries that they've had throughout the course of the season. They're going to be counting on Olu Oluwatimi, Mike Morris, and players like that to pick up the slack with Jalen Sundell and Jarran Reed out. And they currently sit, again, in that number 1 seed at 7-2. Coming up next, it's time to open up the mailbag. I'm going to be tackling all of your questions off of Facebook, X, Blue Sky, Threads, you name it. We've got questions from everywhere. Going to tackle as many as we can. That's coming up next here on our Monday edition of Locked On Seahawks.
Today's show is brought to you by our friends over there at Peloton. Look, folks, it's time to break through the busiest time of the year with a brand new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus that's powered by Peloton IQ. It's Peloton's most elevated technology and equipment yet that gives you real-time guidance, and it gives you endless ways to move, whether you want to work out by yourself or if you want to work out with your favorite instructor, like my personal favorite, Alex Toussaint. He always gets me fired up to tackle the day. And the thing I like about Peloton, it helps me achieve more in less times. They have features that help you plan, stay motivated, track your progress, and Peloton IQ also provides personalized workout plans and recommendations. That's something that I use right now during the busiest time of the year covering the NFL. They plan my workouts for me based on my mood, my vibe, and also my favorite instructors. So make sure you check it out and use it, because it also helps you correct your form in real time, and it maximizes your reps. It counts your reps so that you can do it smarter, safer, and more efficient. Let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
If you're a business owner, here's the truth. SaaS promised to make work easier, but now the average company is buried by hundreds of apps that slow down your teams and simply don't work together. That's not SaaS, that's sad. Software as a disservice. That's why you need Rippling. Rippling is the unified platform for global HR, payroll, IT, and finance all in one place. They've helped millions of businesses replace a mess of disconnected tools with one system designed to give leaders clarity, speed, and control. By uniting your employees, teams, and departments in one system, Rippling removes the bottlenecks, busy work, and silos your software created. Everything from onboarding to payroll to IT access runs automatically and perfectly in sync. Whether you want to run your entire HR, IT, and finance operations as one, or just want to fill the gaps in that your software stacked has left behind, Rippling can do it all. And right now you can get 6 months free when you go to rippling.com/LockedOnNFL. Learn more at rippling.com/LockedOnNFL. That's rippling.com/LockedOnNFL for 6 months free. Terms and conditions apply. Welcome back to the Monday edition of Locked On Seahawks. This is your host, Corbin Smith. A special thanks to all the 12s who are listening in. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. Time to open up the Monday Mailbag here live from the VMAC. Got questions from all the major social media platforms, so let's get to it. Our first one here coming from Stin. And if I mispronounced your name, my apologies. Doing the best that I can here. Do you see progress in Clint Kubiak's game planning and/or in-game adjustments? If so, in which aspects of the game? What are his and the offensive staff's halfway grades compared to expectations on offensive identity? I do see an adjustment being made in a positive way on the run game side of things. Feels like the passing game has been humming for pretty much the entire season, week one being the one exception to that. Seattle's been able to throw the football. They've had a really strong identity ingrained in the play action passing attack to play to Sam Darnold's strengths, mixing in the bootlegs. So I think the passing game has certainly been an A. They have been absolutely dynamic. They have been as explosive as any passing game in the NFL. The run game has just been very hit and miss. And there were times, I talked about it earlier this year, where it felt like they were leaning too much on perimeter runs with Zach Charbonnet, Ken Walker III, trying to figure out what he does best. And now we've seen here these last few games, especially yesterday, Zach Charbonnet with more of those between the tackle style runs that fit his game. And sure enough, went out there and had a really good second half, helping the Seahawks put that game away as Arizona tried to make an improbable comeback. Zach Charbonnet made sure to prevent that from happening with the way that he was running the football, breaking a lot of tackles, playing the game the way that he is built to play. And then we saw George Holani, that one play that they had packaged this week, that outside zone. We're going to put him in that situation. We think he can thrive in this spot. What's he do? Gets a 9-yard touchdown run. So I felt like the run game, trying to mix and match personnel and trying to figure out what his team did well, there was a lot of experimentation going on there with Clint Kubiak. And early in the year, trying to mix Jalen Milroe as part of that. They've gone away from that. So I feel like at this point, that's been the biggest adaptation. It does seem like that this coaching staff right now has a better feel for what is going to be best suited for this personnel and what they do best in the run game. And that's showing up now on the field in these last couple of games. They've particularly been successful against Arizona. So I think that's where you're seeing the best adaptation right now. The passing game, they are just enhancing things and continuing to add. It's been really effective. The run game feels like Clint Kubiak's getting a better idea, his players, what they do best, and how he can scheme that on Sundays. And hopefully they can carry that forward out of this game against a Cardinals defense that was 12th in run defense. Not like this was a slouch defense in terms of stopping the run. They had some injuries, but so did the Seahawks, and they went out and ran the football really well. Jeff C. here on Blue Sky. In practice, our quarterbacks and centers typically paired throughout the season if they don't jump ahead of first, second, and third string in the depth chart. If so, should that change? So I obviously don't get to watch the Seahawks practices during the season. We get to see warm-ups. But generally, the starting quarterback is going to be working with the starting center. And maybe he gets a couple of snaps during the week with the second string center, but you want to have the starter in sync. That's the way that it goes. There's only so many practice reps you have. I don't expect that is going to change if Seattle's got all their centers healthy. But right now, it's clearly this week, it isn't going to be like getting thrown into a game cold like Olu Oluwatimi was snapping to Darnold on Sunday. You're going to get the entire week here to make sure that those two are in sync and that they're good to go. And Darnold got a lot of snaps with Olu Oluwatimi in training camp in the preseason. So it's not like these two have not worked together. I don't expect there's going to be any major changes. You might see Darnold take a few snaps from Bryce Cabeldue or Christian Haynes. Mike Macdonald floating the idea that maybe he might get a chance there as a backup center coming off injured reserve. We'll see what moves Seattle makes, but I don't anticipate that we're going to see any changes in terms of how they do their snap distribution. Sam Darnold is going to be working with the starting center, and that's going to be Olu Oluwatimi here for the foreseeable future. Next question from Chuck Shoot on X. Why doesn't Ken Walker III get any goal line carries? And, it's a really good question, but we all know the real answer is that Mike Macdonald hates your fantasy team. No, as far as a real answer here, look, Zach Charbonnet, what he does well, what he excels at, he is a better short yardage runner. Between the tackles, he is going to get those hard-fought yards. And it's not that Ken Walker III can't do that. We've seen him do it in the past, but clearly Clint Kubiak feels like Zach Charbonnet is a better option in those short yardage and goal line situations. He feels like that fits what they do offensively, and that's been more noticeable lately, that they're going to give him those chances because they feel like they're going to be more effective there. So it's not necessarily even a shot at Ken Walker III. It's just what is the best way we can win? And like Mike Macdonald said yesterday, that's all they care about is how do we win football games? That's why you're getting George Holani a carry here and there. They are finding different ways to maximize players. And Zach Charbonnet in short yardage, they clearly feel like that is the advantageous substitution to make there. And they continue to do it. And Charbs has scored touchdowns consistently. So it has worked. They have been one of the more efficient running teams inside the 10-yard line in the National Football League this year. They have found ways to get it done there, at least with their run game. David Moore on Facebook, it looked like the run game worked better. Was that just the Cardinals not being very good? Were they not stacking the box as much as most teams do against us? Or are we really run blocking better? You could maybe make an argument for a little bit of all three of those things. The Cardinals were missing one of their starting inside linebackers. I think you could tell that was an issue that they were having problems with the between the tackles running game in the second half. I also think that Seattle run blocking was just better across the board. There were some misses, but as a group collectively, cohesively, I thought this was their cleanest game with targets and driving guys and opening up run lanes. And I thought the running backs did a fantastic job. I mean, the touchdown that George Holani had watching the All-22, Anthony Bradford got whipped by Walter Nolan right after the snap, and Nolan flew into the backfield, but Holani managed to wiggle away from him and then made a perfect read on the crashing end, and rest is history. Made a guy miss on the outside, 9-yard touchdown run. So even when the plays were not blocked up well, Greg Zabel talked about this after the game yesterday, the running backs made a lot of those plays work with their ability. And that's, great run games. You're going to have plays like that. There's going to be missed blocks. The other guys are getting paid millions too. You're going to lose some plays. The running backs have to be able to create some on their own. So I think when you look at this game, a lot of it to me was that the run game it looked better. It looked more in sync. It looked schematically like the guys were just doing what they needed to do more. The targeting was on point up front. Running backs were running really well. Great vision overall. Not the negative plays that have killed them for large chunks of this season. That was the biggest difference. And I think Arizona missing one of their starting linebackers. And not as many of those stacked boxes, but it was still not a massive change on that front from what we've seen in the past. Arizona was still playing quite a bit with 7-8 men boxes. So I don't think that was the biggest issue. To me, Seattle's execution was the biggest difference in this matchup. Tim Fink on X, how much value do you believe Cooper Kupp can bring to the team this week, considering his extensive knowledge of the Rams offense? So this stuff happens all the time. Guys change teams, and I think there's some significance to this because of how long Cooper Kupp played with Sean McVay, and he and Mike Macdonald, I'm sure, will be picking each other's brains going into this week because of the matchup. But the Rams have kind of reinvented themselves this year. They're running a lot more heavy personnel with multiple tight ends, kind of like Seattle's offense. That has been a big shift for the Rams this year. So all of these schemes have their changes over the course of seasons. And Sean McVay has proven to be adaptive, and it looks like he's doing that this year. So will it help? Can they glean some things from? Sure, but Sean McVay is going to have some new wrinkles in there, and he's already done that this year. And so Mike Macdonald and his staff, they're going to have to cater to what the Rams are doing now while also being cognizant of some of the things they've done in the past when Cooper Kupp was on that team. It can help. I just don't expect that to be just some massive game changer for them regardless. And our last question here coming from Mike C. from New Jersey. What are the rules for the practice squad injured list? Can Shane Lemieux be activated at some point to potentially help the team? So practice squad injured reserve is the exact same as regular season, regular roster injured reserve. You have to be out minimum 4 games. So Jacardia Wright could be activated now. Shane Lemieux could be activated now and put back on the practice squad if the Seahawks wanted to do that. And I think throwing Lemieux's name out there at least makes some sense right now because he played some center for Clint Kubiak in New Orleans last year with John Benton coaching him. So if he's healthy enough to play, what we don't know is what the injury was that he suffered, how significant is it. Maybe that's a guy that now with the injury to Jalen Sundell that you try to bring back, and he was put on injured reserve October 8th. Based on what I'm looking at, he should be eligible. Both he and Jacardia Wright should be eligible to be activated. Seattle would have to open a spot on the practice squad for either one of those players. That's the downside here. There's not an open spot. You'd have to cut somebody to do that, but they have the ability to do that if they want to, with both those players missing the minimum 4 games so far on injured reserve. Coming up next, I'm going to dish out my Monday musings, my final takeaways off all 22 from yesterday's win over the Cardinals. That's coming your way up next here on our Monday edition of Locked On Seahawks. This episode is brought your way by our friends over at FanDuel. The NBA season's officially underway. There's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game thrilling, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head on over to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. I'm so fired up about the new jeans I have arriving soon from Dewar. I've heard the most amazing things, and I can't wait to sport them. Dewar combines classic jeans wear style with the kind of comfort and performance you get from athletic wear. It is the best of both worlds because Dewar, they're the pioneers of blending technical innovation with everyday clothing. Simply put, Dewar makes the world's most comfortable pants without having to sacrifice style. Get a pair for yourself or as an amazing holiday gift. Go now to shopdewar.com/LockedOnSeattle. You'll get 15% off your first order. That's shopDewar.com/LockedOnSeattle for 15% off. Welcome back to the Monday edition of Locked On Seahawks. I'm your host, Corbin Smith. A special thanks to all the 12s who are tuning in, and thank you as always for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. The Seahawks jumping into the number 1 seed, at least temporarily, in the NFC with their 4th consecutive win, a 44-22 throttling of the Arizona Cardinals at Lumen Field on Sunday. And as we do every Monday, going to take a little bit deeper dive into this game now that I've had a chance to go back and watch the All-22. There's always things that stand out that I didn't notice or maybe weren't as noticeable watching the game live, certainly in a game like this that had so many highlight plays for the Seattle Seahawks. As far as the offensive side of the football goes, a few takeaways that I want to jump into here. First and foremost, there's been so much discussion about the offensive line, and with the injury to Jalen Sundell, Olu Oluwatimi, I was going to make him a feature piece. Talked a lot about that in the first segment, how well he played. Let's talk Gray Zabel here for a second, though. And there's been a few guys that beat me to the punch today in terms of breaking down his run blocking, but I thought this was Gray Zabel's most complete game in terms of pass protection, run blocking. He was winning with athleticism. He was winning with physicality, knocking guys off the ball. He was winning with horizontal displacement. And I just thought it was his best game. He did a really good job protecting Sam Darnold. We are seeing this number 18 overall pick. He is getting better every single week. He's becoming a more consistent player. Some of those rookie mistakes that he was making early in the year, you're seeing fewer and fewer of those, and he's just getting more comfortable. And just the nastiness that he's playing with. Now that he's played 9 games against NFL competition, he knows what to expect, and he's just evolving from those experiences. So I think Gray Zabel, he's got an incredibly bright future, but this guy's already a borderline Pro Bowl guard. He is playing at that level right now, still has not given up a sack, really fired up with the way that he is playing, the way he's knocking guys off the ball. And speaking of blocking, it's interesting because Elijah Arroyo didn't have any big catches yesterday coming off that big game against Washington. He wasn't really a factor in the passing game. And there weren't a lot of throws to go around anyway with the way the Seahawks ran the football with that big lead in the second half. But that is where we're going to tie this into Elijah Arroyo. When he was coming out of Miami, this is a player that everybody was writing down and saying he is a pass-catching tight end. He's a seam stretcher, isn't going to give you much in the blocking game. He has proven, especially these last few weeks, that was a falsehood. He is getting after it as a blocker. He is not going to be a guy that you're going to put in as an inline tight end, that traditional wide tight end for very many snaps and knocking guys around. That's not his game. That's why you keep a player like Nick Caller up around, and he got some plays doing that yesterday. But what Arroyo is doing better than I anticipated, what a lot of draft analysts were anticipating, he is winning consistently on those move blocks. And he had a couple really nice blocks that sprung Zach Charbonnet and Ken Walker on big explosive plays yesterday, where he was kicking guys out. He was wham blocking. He was out in the slot making blocks. He is really impressing me because I just was not anticipating. I didn't think that he was a complete liability in that regard. I thought the move blocks that he could do a little bit, but he has exceeded my expectations. And I think he's going to keep getting better as he grows in that way. So really getting after the credit Seattle's coaching staff for the way they're coaching this kid up, because he is getting after it. I feel like every game the last month, we've seen a few plays where he's popped a little bit. I thought yesterday was his most consistent game, getting after it as a run blocker, and that creates another major issue for opponents. If this guy's not a one-trick pony, it doesn't tell you when he's in the game, well, there's a good chance they're going to throw the football, because he is getting the job done at least well enough consistently as a run blocker, and that's going to open up more possibilities for him to get more snaps because of his pass-catching ability and his athleticism. Going to the defensive side of the football, I talked so much about this kid the last month that, you try to find new ways to sum up the way that a guy's playing. But Drake Thomas, to me, he is the human missile. The way that he is playing the linebacker position right now. If he was a comic book character, that's exactly what I would call him. He's the human missile. There were 3 tackles for loss by him yesterday. He is now tied for the league lead for tackles for loss that are not sack variety. He is leading the league for off-ball linebackers in that category after yesterday's game. He is consistently making splash plays. And it isn't just the athleticism. He has always had that. He's had the juice athletically, but it's the way that his eyes lead him to the football. The 3-yard tackle for loss that he had in the first quarter, second possession for Arizona, it was incredible to watch him get downhill on that play. It almost looked like a delayed blitz with how quickly he shot inside of the wham block. And you guys may remember, I'm in this room here. I'm in this room here at the VMAC, and for whatever reason, the motion sensor, when I'm moving my arms and stuff, it still doesn't turn back on. So my apologies on that. But getting back to Drake Thomas, what is so fun to watch is just the way that he's using his eyes and he's using his instincts to find the football and make plays in the backfield. Arizona had a wham block on that play that I mentioned, the 3-yard tackle for loss, and he let that block there take him to the run play that they were running, shoots inside of that block, and like a missile comes in and just barrels over the ball carrier, 3-yard loss, punt for Arizona. He had a couple other really nice plays where he showed off his speed, his instincts, getting to the football, playing sideline to sideline, playing downhill, and he is just playing within himself right now. He is shooting his shot, and he is confident in what he's seeing. And when a linebacker's doing that against the run, especially the D-line he's got in front of him, that makes it easier, obviously, keeping blockers off him. But he's taking advantage of all those things. He's playing at an incredibly high level right now. He's as disruptive as anybody at that inside linebacker position right now. And that's why they kept him at the will in this game, to give him that flexibility, give the green dot back to Tyrese Knight, who used that some last year. And let's just let him play with instincts. Let's let him play fast. Not have to worry about calling the plays and all that stuff. And he was fantastic yesterday. And last but not least, Nick Emmanwori, he is becoming the dictator for the Seahawks defense. And I'm not talking about somebody that runs a hostile government here. Not that kind of a dictator, though. Maybe he evolves into that as the Seahawks dictator on defense. What I mean by this, though, is he's dictating terms to what the offense can do. It isn't the other way around. And this is why you trade up in the beginning of the second round to get a safety, even though you already have Kobe Bryant and you have Julian Love on your roster. This is why you go up and draft a 6'3", 220. I'm still saying 6'4", 230, because that's what I've seen in the practice field. Like, that's how big this guy is. You trade up to get a guy like that primarily because of the size, speed, intangibles. Obviously, you're trying to see if you can mold all those skill sets, all those physical gifts into a fantastic football player that can play a number of positions. And Seattle's already doing that with this kid. He's playing in the slot. And what I mean by him being a dictator is, like, most of the time what an offense is trying to do, they're trying to make defenses put the personnel groupings that they want out there. If they're saying, well, hey, we're going to go heavy against you, multiple tight ends, you need to bring in more size. Seattle doesn't have to do that. They say, okay, Nick's already out there. Nick's our slot. We're comfortable with him taking tight ends and going up against offensive tackles. We've got this big safety. We can do that. If you spread them out and you say, all right, go into dime, say, that's fine. I don't have to make any big personnel changes because Nick Emmanwori can play deep safety, or he can play in the slot just fine with his 4.32 speed. And so this is a situation, and I don't know that there's any other defense in the NFL right now that can do this with as much ease as Seattle can. But Mike Macdonald doesn't have to mix and match personnel groupings defensively to cater whatever, or battle against whatever the opposing offense is doing. He's got Nick Emmanwori, who is the ultimate Swiss Army knife, and he's still improving. He's still learning. This kid had 4 pass breakups. He had a partial sack. He was all over the field making tackles yesterday. He put up a stat line that had only been done a handful of times in NFL history, and he did it as a rookie in really what amounts to his 5th full game. What he's doing, he is just barely scratching the surface of his potential, but it is still allowing the Seahawks, and Macdonald hinted at today, hey, might have another position that we're going to have him learn to play now because he's figuring all this stuff out. You don't have to have a bunch of these mass substitutions. It doesn't matter what the offense does, what kind of scheme and what kind of personnel groupings they're doing. Like, Nick Emmanwori can be in there against all of it, and you don't have to make big changes on your defense. That provides an incredible amount of freedom. for a defensive play caller, and it takes a lot of that flexibility away from the opposing offensive play caller. It's just, I don't know that anybody else has got a weapon like that right now in the NFL. And again, he's a rookie. He made some mistakes yesterday, gave up some big plays in the passing game, and Mike Macdonald's going to be working with him on some of that stuff so that he can cut some of those plays down. But he made so many more plays in that game that were just demonstrating the freakish ability and the versatility, the number of different things he can do at a really high level. It really is a game-changing addition to this defense, though, because they don't have to make wide-scale changes regardless of what the opposing offense is doing. They can keep a lot of the same players in there, particularly Emmanwori. Yeah, you're going to go heavy. We'll bring him down, and he can handle it. He can play in the box, whatever. Oh, you're going to go spread 5 wide. He runs a low 4-3. We're not worried. He can handle it. Whatever speed you've got on the outside. Teams just don't have that kind of weapon, especially with all the other talent that Seahawks have. So from that standpoint, he is the dictator. He dictates terms. The Seahawks dictate terms to the offense, not the other way around. As always, you can follow me at X and Blue Sky at Corbin Smith NFL. Make sure to subscribe to Locked On Seahawks on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts to make sure you don't miss a single episode. Coming up tomorrow, I'll be rejoined by Rob Rang. We'll have some Tell the Truth Tuesday truths, and we'll be diving into what's new with the LA Rams heading into Sunday's massive divisional matchup at SoFi Stadium. Make sure you listen in and enjoy the rest of your Monday. Go Hawks.